Hello, and on behalf of VMUG, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast, VMware vRealize Operations Cloud, presented by Ellie Ruano, Senior Product Marketing Manager for VMware, John Diaz, Staff Technical Architect VMware, and we also have Manav Verma, Senior Product Manager for VMware, who will be answering questions throughout the presentation. Thank you for participating in today's webcast and for your continued support in the Global VMUG program. Before we begin, I have 3 quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for you on demand. You'll receive a follow-up email with that on-demand link, so keep an eye out for it. Second, a Q&A session will also follow today's presentation. All questions should be entered in the question window near the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. Third, there will be a short online evaluation that pops up as you exit the webcast. Please make sure to take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. All right, let's get started. Ellie, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. We're very excited to have you here to hear what's going on with VMware vRealize Operations Cloud. And I would love to share more with you about myself. I am Senior Product Marketing Manager, as Julie just mentioned, in the Cloud Management Business Unit. We have with us John Diaz, who she just mentioned as well. And we also have in the background Manav Verma, who is our Senior Product Manager. And he is going to be helping to answer your questions, and we'll have a live Q&A at the end. So I'm going to open up with an overview here and go through a couple of high-level points of what's going on with vRealize Operations Cloud. And then I'm going to turn it over to John, and he's going to talk to you about some of the capabilities in the 8.1 release. And also we'll show a demo. John will show that demo, and we'll take questions at the end. So let's get started. Customers are telling us that they have several challenges with cloud management, and you might be able to relate to some of these. They tell us they need to meet their service level agreements, and they're struggling to deliver performance at minimal costs. Who doesn't want to reduce their costs in order to meet those business needs? In addition, they're modernizing, so they might be spinning up a new data center or have consolidation and modernization projects that are going on, and they need to better use their existing resources. When it comes to visibility, customers are telling us that they are deploying SDDC technologies, software-defined data center technologies, or they're integrating public clouds. And with this, they're struggling to get unified visibility for troubleshooting to make quick decisions. I mentioned cutting costs. That's always a challenge, looking at different ways to do that with licensing or capital expenditure and operating expenditure, and then also managing risk. So they want to manage risk and stay compliant, obviously while assuring performance. So these are some of the challenges that organizations are telling us that they're having in their environments. And with vRealize Operations Cloud, this is a unified operations platform that is going to help overcome those challenges using artificial intelligence, and it's across the stack, applications to infrastructure for VMware Cloud and multiple public clouds. Now we have, the way that we do this is through these 4 basic tenets. And let's start off just real quickly giving you a high-level overview if you're not familiar with this. Many of you might already be using vRealize Operations on-prem. So with vRealize Operations Cloud, it's the same as on-prem, same feature parity. With the 4 tenets, we start with performance optimization, and this is going to help you reduce your downtime. So you have the real-time predictive analytics and the AI that will help you automatically balance your workloads across your clusters, improve consolidation ratios, and optimize that performance. And then when we look at capacity and cost management, this is going to help improve your productivity, your efficiency. You'll get the real-time predictive capacity and cost analytics and the AI that give you the ability to identify the capacity risk and take the actions to optimize the utilization. And this is for VMware Cloud Foundation and VMware Cloud on AWS. In addition, the app-aware intelligent remediation is going to give you the quick time to value. That's the benefit of this particular tenant. And it's going to help you predict and prevent and troubleshoot across your deployment. And then we have a new feature that we announced in 8.0 release, which was the troubleshooting workbench. So that's based on the smart application topology, the metric correlation, and the AI that's going to help accelerate the anomaly detection and the root cause analysis. And then with the integrated configuration and compliance, this is going to measure your VMware Cloud Foundation and your VMware Cloud on AWS compliance stature, and that's based on the regulatory and IT standards. So the same capabilities as on-prem. You get the same common user interface. What I'm showing right now is the quick start page. So common user interface is on-prem. You have feature parity with on-prem. You have the same features. You get the same features as what is in the 8.1 release. And you get the same features as the Enterprise Edition. So with this, I talked about the optimized performance. So you can run your workload optimization for the performance in your data centers. You can see here in the far left column, you can right size your workloads. It'll give you recommendations and also the history. With your capacity and cost management, it's going to help you determine if there's sufficient capacity. It'll take a look at reducing waste by reclaiming unused resources, maybe hosts or storage. And then it has the planning, the what if scenarios for those future projects that'll help you and provide a model for the best fit for those workloads and assessing cost. Very important. Troubleshooting, so this is that troubleshooting workbench that I was talking to you about, gives you the potential root cause analysis. It gives you the dashboards, the reports, the views, and the alerts, and then your configuration and compliance there based on the IT and regulatory standards. You also get in vRealize Operations Cloud. On the far right, you'll see a red box, and that is highlighting a support tab. So John will go through this in his demo, but in the support tab, you're going to be able to reach out. You'll get the product guide, you'll get Q&A, but we'll see a little bit more of that in the demo. So we are very excited that you have all of this as a similar environment as what you might have on-prem. Now, why are organizations going to SaaS-based IT operations? We have customers telling us that across all verticals, and you can see some of them here on the bottom of the screen, and also companies of all sizes. We have companies who are managing hundreds of virtual machines and those that are managing tens of thousands of VMs who are moving to SaaS-based IT operations. And what they're telling us, an insurance company says that for operational agility, the automation that comes with vRealize Operations Cloud is going to help the limited IT staff that they have to meet their internal SLAs. It's going to help them free up time from the infrastructure maintenance so that they can focus more on supporting the applications that are used internally by their business unit. We have a healthcare organization telling us about IT modernization. They need to shift the maintenance and the upgrade responsibilities from their on-site team, from their IT staff to VMware. And then we have another healthcare organization who is telling us the reason that they're moving to SaaS-based IT is they need to increase their business growth and accelerate their innovation in their research and development department, because they have to reduce their time to market for their clinical trials. And this is going to help them move faster. With digital transformation, we have a global consulting firm, and this global consulting firm is telling us that they have demanding customers and they want to increase their responsiveness to those customers. So they're going through the digital transformation process because they need more flexibility. They need more capacity, more scalability, so they can respond faster to those customers all over the world. And then we have an oil and gas company telling us about mergers and acquisitions, in which the way that they are growing is by acquiring other companies. So they want to consolidate those IT environments and better enable their distributed IT staff. So with federation across multiple different environments, it's needed through a single console and through a tool that's easy to onboard and to manage multiple data centers. And John's going to show us the demo of that onboarding process. So this is what's so great about SaaS-based IT operations, is that these are some of the use cases that organizations are saying, this is going to work for my company. Now, here's a quote from Stefan, who is in Germany, and he is a systems specialist working at Bosch Stuttgart. This is a German stock exchange company. And Stefan says, VMware vRealize Operations Cloud works smoothly without my influence. I get a message before an upgrade, then it happens automatically. A few minutes later, I get another saying everything is finished. I'm saving up to 10 hours a month on upgrades and troubleshooting. That's success to me. That's success to us too, if he's being successful. I really love what's happening there with another customer, Jason Bentley, who is an infrastructure engineer with Tabcorp. They're in Australia. He says, one advantage, I can access it anywhere in the world because it's SaaS from VMware, and I don't have to be logged on to access it. We're spread across the eastern seaboard of the country in Australia, and it helps to have the same release features available to everyone. And that was one thing that we were mentioning, is same features across SaaS. We also have a few additional quotes from customers. A senior engineer who said, I was really taken by how incredibly easy the deployment was. I don't know if I've had an easier experience, maybe with the installation of WinZip. WinZip is small software available to many of us, but that's pretty easy there. Another system engineer is saying it started collecting within minutes. Everything just worked, and the responsiveness is just like it's on-prem. We like to hear that. A lead system administrator says it was nice to see the exact same results. I could see a completely new instance getting the same infrastructure monitoring and reporting as on-prem. So this is exciting that they're experiencing what we have purposely built for SaaS. And what I'm going to do now is, John Diaz has joined us, and he's going to walk you through what's new in the 8.1 release and give you a demo of onboarding, a little tour of vRealize Operations Cloud. So, John, you with us?
Yeah. Hey, Ellie, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you want to just stay on the slides and then we'll switch for the demo, just go to the next slide. I'll kind of go over this and we go ahead and let it build out. But we're really excited. This has actually been announced, the 8.1 release of the vRealize Operations, which will come in a few weeks. And some of the notable things here is the support for the very popular, it's been getting a lot of attention, is the vSphere 7 with Kubernetes. We'll have full support in vRealize Operations 8.1. So we'll have more details about that as we get into GA. And we're also adding on the cloud side support for Google Cloud Platform, in addition to the support we already have for AWS and Azure. So we're continuing to build on that multi-cloud support capability to give you, single place to view both your SDDC deployments as well as any deployments you have out in public cloud as well. A couple of other things to note, integration with Slack, better integration with vRealize Log Insight, some additional management packs, of course, cloud costing through our partner product, or not partner product, but another product in our portfolio, which is Cloud Health, to give us really deep costing information from that product visible within vRealize Operations as well. There's support for vVols and so forth. Now, a couple of things to note on the physical OS monitoring. The reason we have that highlighted is because that is a capability that our vRealize Operations Cloud customers will get at initial availability that won't be available on-prem just yet. So this is kind of a teaser, if you will, or one of the benefits of going with vRealize Operations Cloud versus deploying on-prem, is that we can iterate much more quickly on new features and capabilities, and we can get you to access to those sooner than you would on the slower release cycle for on-premises. So if you're interested in seeing the next features, what's coming, that physical OS monitoring will be the first of those, and of course there'll be many more to come in the future. Okay, next slide, Elle. Now, another thing to point out is that with vRealize Operations Cloud, of course, that lands in a portfolio where we have other cloud offerings in the vRealize family: Network Insight, vRealize Log Insight, and vRealize Automation Cloud. So of course, we want those all to work together seamlessly, and they will. And that's one of the nice things about vRealize Operations Cloud. If you're already running vRealize Log Insight Cloud, for example, when you start up vRealize Operations Cloud, there's nothing to do. We'll automatically see, or vRealize Operations Cloud will automatically see that that product exists in your org, and will just turn, the integration will just turn on, okay? So this is the way that we're going to tie these products into together. We'll automatically be aware that you're using, or if you decide later to turn those services on, say you're not using Log Insight Cloud today or vRealize Automation Cloud today, and you decide to turn them on later, we'll still, integrate at that time. So won't affect the functionality of vRealize Operations Cloud unless you enable those services. One thing to note, vRealize Operations Cloud will work with any of the cloud services. If you're using on-premises versions of the vRealize products, then you'll want to stick with the vRealize Operations on-premises, the 8.1 version. So this is for our customers who have really bought into the value of software as a service, having VMware run your infrastructure, run your vRealize Operations clusters, so that you can be free to get value out of the products. And so it's really important for us to tie the cloud services in together. Okay, next slide. And of course, as I mentioned, really excited that we'll support vSphere 7 with Kubernetes. It's deployed as part of the VMware Cloud Foundation. So you can look for some great capability there, some visibility into that container management in that'll be part of vRealize or vSphere, I should say, that we'll be able to natively consume and understand in vRealize operations. So for example, there are new constructs and new objects that come as part of that new capability, and vRealize operations is ready to understand those in vRealize Operations 8.1. Next slide. Okay, and now with the demo. Okay, my favorite part. So it's always fun to just show, or do slides, but I'd rather show you on my monitor here. Got to select the right one. And Ellie, can you just confirm that you can see this?
Absolutely, looks great. I'm seeing my services. Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is the Cloud Services Portal. If you haven't seen this, Ellie, showed some slides that had this in here, and of course, in my org, the CMBU TMM org, I've got a lot of services activated because we have to be able to demonstrate those. But you'll notice that vRealize Operations Cloud is one of those services, and to access it, I just simply log into this Cloud Services Portal, and then I can begin to consume the services I've already subscribed to, or if there are other services in the marketplace that I may be interested in and either doing a trial or actually subscribing to, I can come down here and read about those and deploy those as well. So very easy to consume, and that's it. Once you basically request the service, you're done from an installation standpoint. VMware is going to take over from there and run the services for you. Now, the folks that are running these services behind the scene are our SREs, or site reliability engineers, and those SREs are going to make sure that your data is protected, that the cluster is always available, the service is available. If there's any maintenance to be done, they'll notify you. They'll perform upgrades. They'll make sure that you're sized appropriately, for the amount of data you're collecting. All of that stuff they'll do for you. And you can reach out and talk to them by going to the support tab, which is ubiquitous throughout the Cloud Services Portal, as well as any of the products, as you'll see when we get into vRealize Operations. That support tab is still there, and you can easily search for any content that you might need from the documentation. But better yet is you can reach out to VMware support to get in touch with those SREs that are supporting the environment if you have a particular question or you're seeing an issue. However, we're going to be monitoring this environment on an ongoing basis. In fact, we're using vRealize Operations as a primary tool to monitor vRealize Operations Cloud. So the SREs are probably going to be where if there is an outage or an issue. But if you have just a general question or usability question or how to that I don't seem to be able to understand how to create a dashboard, or it's not working for me, or I can't import a dashboard into my environment, that type of thing, they're right here at your fingertips. You can easily, you don't have to pick up a phone or anything. You can start chatting with them right there. If you want to open a support request, you can certainly do that from here as well. So very easy to get support for this. Now, let me go into vRealize Operations Cloud, launch that service, and step you through what will happen initially when you bring up vRealize Operations Cloud for the first time in your org. Now, this org, obviously, I've got everything kind of set up. I'm monitoring some of my vCenters in my lab and so forth. But what you would normally see here is a nice icon of our friendly robot Skylar, who's prompting you, click here to begin. And basically that click here to begin will take you to the administration tab and then right into something called cloud proxies. And cloud proxies are how vRealize Operations communicates with your on-premises SDDC, how it connects to the vCenter to collect information and then forward it into vRealize Operations Cloud in a secure manner. So you can see I have one deployed right here, a cloud proxy. But if I needed another one, maybe I had multiple data centers, multiple vCenters spread throughout the globe, for example, I would just come in here and click New, and I follow a simple 4-step process. And that 4-step process is basically, first, I've got to get the cloud proxy bits. I've got to download the software, and that comes, of course, in an OVA format, like many of the VMware products out there. And I can download it, or better yet, I can just copy this path, and when I go into vCenter to deploy it, I would just paste the path in there to deploy that OVA. As you're probably familiar, if you're VI administrator, part of the process of setting up or deploying any of our virtual appliances includes things like setting IP address and so forth. So you'll have to customize that deployment with that information. But then one of the bits of information that you'll be prompted for is a one-time key. And this one-time key is basically used to set up a secure communication between any cloud proxy you deploy and your vRealize Operations Cloud instance. And there's a long, cryptic key here. You don't have to type that in by hand or anything. You can just simply cut and paste or copy and paste that into your clipboard and then paste it into the appropriate section in the vRealize, in the vSphere OVA deployment. Once you deploy the OVA, you power it on, and at that point, within minutes, really, you'll see the cloud proxy appear here in the list of cloud proxies. And it'll tell you initially that it's coming online or something like that, but literally within minutes, you'll see it with an online status here with the name the friendly name that you provided during that installation. Once the cloud proxy is installed, you're basically onboarded, meaning that now you have the capability to start collecting metrics from your vCenters, from your VMC accounts, if you will, or your VMC orgs, et cetera, even public cloud accounts. Now, the way that you do this at this point is exactly the way that you would do it for vRealize Operations on premises, and that's going to the cloud accounts and adding a cloud account. And a cloud account, if you're familiar with vRealize automation, they use the same terminology, and that's another thing that we're doing as we bring all of our services together into kind of a unified SaaS offering, is to use the same terminology. And then that terminology is basically saying, I have an endpoint out there that I want to monitor, and I need to have a credential set. I need to have an IP address or an FQDN that points at that endpoint. and then some other additional information. But basically, the cloud account provides everything that vRealize Operations needs to know to monitor, in this case, a vCenter or a VMC org. Now, if I go here to add account, you'll see that I have the choice of adding a vCenter, a VMC environment, and I'll come back and talk about that, as well as public cloud, AWS and Microsoft Azure. I mean, coming, of course, will be the Google GCP. So if I add a vCenter, for example, and if you've done this before on the on-premises version, you'll notice that it looks exactly the same. I would add the account information here for my vCenter, give an FQDN, select my credential set. The only thing that would be different for this is you'll want to associate this cloud account with the collector that you deployed in that data center. So in my case, my CMBU lab, I've deployed a cloud proxy there to connect to all the vCenters that I have deployed. So I would just select that, and then I can enable, vSAN collection. I can enable service discovery if I want, add it, and I'm done. And just to show you what it looks like once that's completed, this is a typical setup here. I, of course, have my collector set up. And the question often comes up, if I have multiple, or can I deploy multiple cloud proxies and put them in a collector group like I would do with remote collectors, traditional remote collectors? And the answer is yes, you can do that if you wanted to have, improve the availability of the cloud proxies. So that's it for the vCenter. Once it's set up online, you'll see within minutes again, it'll say status is okay, and it'll start collecting for that. Now, for the VMC portion, it's a little bit different because we understand the cloud services, portal that's underlying all of the cloud SaaS offerings that we have at VMware. So what we need to know for that is we need to know the credential will actually be based on, and let me just edit that, the credential will actually be based on a CSP refresh token. So that CSP refresh token is something you get from the cloud services portal when you go into your user settings, and I can show you that in a minute when we go and talk about identity and access management. But that CSP refresh token is how vRealize Operations will go out, inspect the VMC org that you're using, and come back and it'll tell you, oh, you have, in my case, just one VMC instance running in that org, and it'll automatically discover it for you. And then all you have to do is basically say, yep, I want to monitor it. Here are the credentials, here's the collector group. If it's a public facing IP address for the vCenter that's associated with that VMC, then you can just use the default collector group and use that vCenter server. Otherwise, you'll need to deploy a cloud proxy to that as well. So makes it a little easier because you don't have to already know, like in the case with the vCenters, you kind of have to know where the vCenters are and add the IP addresses and so forth to find them. In the case of a VMware Cloud on AWS, we'll discover those for you. Okay, some things I want to show you that relate to the identity and access management. Let me go back out to the cloud. Go back out to the Cloud Services console and the Cloud Services portal. And how do I give people in my organization access to vRealize Operations Cloud, or really any of the services from this point of view? Well, you do that under Identity and Access Management, and you say, okay, I'm going to add users, and you can see I've added several users here already, but you can add users. They can also be groups, but you just simply put in the email address, and then you select the role, either organization member or organization owner. And this kind of gets into something I'm not going to cover in this webinar, but it gets into some of the details about what these mean in terms of the cloud services portal roles for the organizations. And of course, you can come over here to the support, and it'll tell you more about what you need to know about what those different roles are. But suffice it to say, probably typically most people in your org are going to be organization members that can come in and use the various services. Now, in my case, I want to make sure that a user that I'm adding has access to vRealize Operations Cloud. And you see two roles here, VROps Administrator and VROps User. So those are the two roles that you can assign. You can assign both. But if you click the administrator, they're going to have full administrator privileges in vRealize Operations. So of course, be very careful about who you grant that access to. For the VROps user, they'll have a limited set. They won't be able to do certain things that the administrator can do. And we'll go look at that, the properties of those in a minute in vRealize Operations. But basically, what we do here in the Cloud Services Portal Identity and Access Management will assign those users upon login to either one or both of these groups, depending on what you selected, okay? So we'll look at that in a second. The other thing that I want to show you, since I mentioned it, was the refresh token, CSV refresh token. So if you go here and you go to, I went to my account basically, and if you go to API tokens, here's where you can create a token and basically use that to for any of your services. If you do generate a token, be sure to copy and save that token, because you will not ever be able to see it again in this UI. You notice here that I've got tokens that I've issued, and I have no idea what those tokens are. So if I forget, if I didn't save that token in a secure place somewhere, I'm not going to have it anymore. So just something to be aware of for that. Now let's go back into vRealize Operations Cloud. And just to continue the story of the access and identity management, like I mentioned, there are two default groups, administrator or user. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have other groups, but where you would create those groups is actually in vRealize Operations. So for example, under administration and under access, there is an access control. Access control is the traditional place where in vRealize Operations, you would set up who can access and what do they have access to in the environment. And if you'll look, you'll see that there are two groups that are created by default. There's actually three. There's an everyone group, but these two groups, the CSP admin users, Cloud Services Portal, admin users and users. Those are the two, those mirror the two groups that you would assign new users to in the Cloud Services Identity and Access Management. But once someone is logged in, you can actually create additional groups with additional roles. And so, for example, these are the two that are provided initially. The administrator role, and you see that under the permissions, it has all of the permissions. They can do everything. So not something you want to give to every one of your users. But if you look at the general user role, you can see that they have very limited permissions. So for example, under administration access control, they can only view the access control page. They can't give others or themselves additional access. Just an example of something that an administrator can do. Now, if you wanted to even further customize these, say you wanted to have a super user who could manage other users but couldn't do things like create dashboards, for example, then all you'd have to do is say add, and then you could create that new user role based on the permissions that you set just by selecting from this permission set. And you can even customize the general user. So we've kind of made some assumptions about things that you may want people to do as a general user that may not apply to your environment. Maybe you're okay with them, for example, using REST APIs to perform, destructive actions like deleting. And so you can enable those. You can absolutely modify this existing role, but I'd probably recommend like creating a new role with specific capabilities that you need to do that. So CSP, Cloud Services Portal, handles authorization, and not authorization, but who can actually log into the system, so authentication. And then vRealize operations, once that user is authenticated, takes over and controls the authorization. What is that user capable of doing in this environment? Okay. So Ellie, with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you if there are, unless there are any questions that are can't wait until the Q&A.
Okay, fantastic. Just do me a favor, John. Let me know you can see my screen.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay, so one last thing, and thank you so much, John, for walking us through that fantastic demo. Really good to see. One thing that I do want to share with everyone is the Forrester Total Economic Impact Study. And this was, we commissioned Forrester to go out and talk to some customers, and they talked to 5 customers who had challenges like what I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation. And Forrester asked them information about how things were running in their environment and what they were experiencing. And you can read the full report on our website. And what they experienced was pretty cool. They have been experiencing with vRealize operations on-prem. And the reason I want to share this with you is because with vRealize Operations Cloud, you get the same capabilities and you get these same benefits, but you also get all the benefits of SaaS. So what's important here is that these customers were experiencing 93% reduction in unplanned downtime. We mentioned what performance optimization capability can do for you, and that's what it's helping them to do. That's pretty fantastic. They are experiencing 50% reduction in mean time to resolve, which comes into play with our intelligent remediation and the troubleshooting and the monitoring. With the improvement in operational efficiency, they're seeing 30%. So using the capacity and cost management to help with that. 50%, oh, I'm sorry, that's an improvement. Yes, that's an increase. 50% reduction in their software licensing costs, 20% reduction in hardware costs, and 10% reduction in storage costs. So with the benefits of all of the tenants and the capabilities that we've talked about, they're getting this and all the benefits of SaaS that I was mentioning in the use cases of why folks are wanting to use purpose-built SaaS-based IT operations. And now what I'd love to do is open it up and find out, Manav, do we have any questions? Are there any in the Q&A panel that have come up?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ali and John, for talking about and walking us through the vRealize Cloud. I got a couple of questions on the chat, which I'm not clear. And people who ask those questions, please feel free to chime in. Cristiano asked at the end, could you show the cost of one VM? Is it possible? And Chris asked one question, how does the cost of features compare between SaaS and on-prem? What I understood, Ali, both Cristiano and Chris are asking about the pricing between the vRealize Cloud and vRealize on-prem. So if you can just talk quickly about the pricing stuff, that would be awesome.
I can. I have some information for you. And the way vRealize Operations Cloud is priced is the list price is per OSI. We have hourly on demand as well as annual. And you can have 1 and 2 years, which is $13.95. This is US dollars. For those of it joining in another country, it would be within your local currency. So 1 and 2 years is $13.95 per month per OSI, gives you a 35% savings over on demand. And then if you go with 3, 4, or 5 years, you're getting $11.95 per month, gives you up to 45% savings. And I have a definition here listed that helps a little bit more with the definition of the OSI. So 1 OSI is equal to 1 virtual machine, an on-prem or public cloud database instance. One, if you have one of the public cloud instances with AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, 1 OSI equals 1 of those instances. 1 OSI is 1 Kubernetes worker node. And then when we look at management packs, you have for standard, if you're on standard and advanced edition of vRealize operations on-prem, it'll consume 1 OSI, and for enterprise, it will be 2. And if you happen to have CPUs, the way this is estimated is 12 OSIs equals 1 CPU of vRealize operations. Now, what is another question, and Manav, thank you for sharing this question, but I'm also going to share with the folks in our webinar is how and what do I do with my existing licenses? So we have a subscription upgrade program for customers who want to upgrade their perpetual license to the subscription vRealize Operations Cloud. Organizations can get up to 25% discount of list price, and that is between standard, advanced, and enterprise. You must be active on your subscription and service and coming up for renewal. And you can see here the discount. So if you're on vRealize Operations Standard, if you have that perpetual license and you want to move to subscription, vRealize Operations Cloud, and let's say you're looking at a 3-year commitment price, it's $11.25. So you get a 5% off. And if we continue with that scenario, if you're on advanced, it's $10.15. And if you're on enterprise, you get that 25% because you're already making a commitment and you get it for $8.95 per OSI per month. On our website, you will find at cloud.vmware.com/vRealize-operations-cloud, you'll find our terms and conditions flyer that has more information as well as some frequently asked questions to help you with this. But I hope that gives those gentlemen a little bit more information about what they can expect for pricing.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
so Manav, I can show Cristiano some costing of a VM in vRealize operations.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But Cristiano
Yeah.
replied that he got the information from Ellie's staff, but feel free to send him more information.
Okay.
You want to, John, do you have that readily available?
Yeah, I've got it pulled up here.
Okay.
So
Let's show that.
yeah, so this is a dashboard. It's actually called a Showback. A perfect example of what you're talking about. And here we can see, different Showback groups that we created, and these are groups, like, they can be based on really anything. Like there's a lot of, as far as containers or how you can organize things in vRealize operations, there's a lot of choices. One is you can use the natively available folders that you may be using in vRealize or in vSphere rather, and select a group of VMs that may be in a folder. I can look at, I can create custom groups if I want, if there aren't any kind of organization inherently used in vSphere, for example. So I can create custom groups based on object properties and organize them that way. But however you do it, when I select this group, I can see the cost summary. This is always going to show as month to date for the virtual machines. And it'll give you a breakdown by the expense, ranking by expense and savings potential, which I'll get back to in a second. And then also this, breakdown of each of the virtual machines in that group. So this is a very small group. This would normally be like the top 5, and then I may have literally hundreds of VMs under this. But it's showing my month-to-date cost we have it set for US dollar currency, but it could be in your local currency, of course. And then the other thing that we show, 2 interesting things. One is the projected cost. Like if I continue to use this virtual machine into the next few months or into the next year, what would that cost look like for that virtual machine? Now you'll also see things like potential savings, and the potential savings are based on any recommendations we may make about virtual machine sizing based on how we've seen that virtual machine actually consume resources over time. So if a machine is oversized or over allocated for CPU memory or storage, or it's got a lot of snapshots or large snapshots associated with that virtual machine that you want to reclaim, we'll show you that cost savings, the potential cost savings here, so you can go after that cost savings and lower that projected cost for the VM on an ongoing basis. And then, of course, we give you, the trend line about what these metrics look like a line chart as well, so it's easy, maybe a little easier to present to your particular audience. But yeah, so that at a high level is kind of one of the ways that we show cost in here. But there is a whole host of things that we don't have to. If I did a demo on everything related to cost and capacity, we'd need another hour to do that. So just suffice it to say that this is loaded in capabilities in terms of helping you not only visualize cost, but to control costs as well.
Thank you, John. While you're on this topic, quick question on the same topic. Does the showback show cost or running it on a cloud resource versus pulling it back on-prem?
Oh, that's a great question, and one of my favorites. So you'll notice we have this little assess cost option here. And what we can actually do, actually that was the wrong one. Let me go back and go to the plan. Let's do the plan. And this brings up several what if scenarios, right? So typically people may want to know what happens if I add more VMs. I'm onboarding a new project or something like that. It's 20 more VMs. Do I have a cluster that can support that? What happens if I add either hyper-converged or traditional servers to my environment? How much more capacity does that give me, and how much will it cost me to do that? But we also have this migration capability here, so we can show onboarding or migrating any application to the field. So we'll say this is our accounting app that we want to migrate or consider migrating to public cloud, and we can either do it using VMware's SDDC stack extended on AWS through VMware Cloud on AWS, and we can select the region. Or if we wanted to do public cloud, one or more public clouds, we could do that as well. So just to show you, for example, I'll do central US, just because that's where I am. Well, I'll do East. For both Amazon and IBM, I can do Azure and so on and so forth. But I'll just pick those two clouds. And by the way, there you can see Google's in here, Google Cloud's in here as well. And if you wanted to add a provider like one of our VMware Cloud provider partners, you can actually add your own cloud provider and just simply get their rate sheet from them and the instance sizes that they support and so forth, and you can model that as well. So you're not limited to just these. Let me go ahead and pick something for Microsoft. No, I'll do one overseas from me anyway. Now you can select. You can say, well, this is a new application, and I'm going to decide whether or not this application should go on-prem or in the cloud. But if you're wanting to migrate something from on-prem, you just select from existing VMs, and I can come in here and say, oh, here's my accounting application. So I'll select all VMs for the accounting application, click OK, and it'll say, yep, these are the VMs that we see, and it'll use this information about, you'll notice that it says both allocation and demand. So not only we understand how these machines are configured, but we understand what they're using. And this is how we help you with some of the cost reclamation and so forth, but it also helps vRealize operations when we run this scenario to pick the appropriate instance sizes for the various cloud providers. Okay, so here we have our private cloud cost, our Amazon cost, our IBM cloud, and our Microsoft Azure. And if I wanted to say, well, I'll pull this back into the continental US, so I'll find that one here, and I can even change that on the fly, and it'll tell me the instance sizes for each of the providers and the relative costs associated with those. And here I can save the scenario if I want to come back and review it later and make some changes to it, or I can go back and edit it if I'm like, well, there was actually another accounting machine that, or a server that's a part of this accounting web application. Let me add that in there as well. So that's how easy it is to do that cost comparison that you're talking about. Is it more cost effective to run on premises in my SDDC or in VMware Cloud on AWS, or is it more cost effective to run in one or more public clouds? So I'm going to just not say this. Anand, does that help answer the question?
Awesome. That's perfect, John. I know there were a couple of questions around VCD, the vRealize tenant app connecting to VCD port. We definitely want to go there, and you will see that integration available to you guys somewhere around our Q3 release. And same thing for VCPP related questions. So as part of our first release, which is supposed to be out in April 2nd week, we focused on bringing up the whole infrastructure in place and making sure that vRealize Cloud can run in an AWS public cloud environment. And slowly, we will add more use cases like tenant app integrating with VCD, making it available via VCPP, integrating with the Cloud Hub provider protocol, Cloud Provider Hub. So we are getting there. You won't see some of these things starting April, but we will definitely have these functionality available by our Q3, which is planned for September 2020. John, while you were talking about our whole ecosystem, there was a question from Mike Geller, and I didn't understand the question. Maybe John, you can answer that.
Yeah, no, right. So yeah, I know what he's asking. So Mike is asking for some clarity on vRealize Network Insight and how it's bundled with the rest of the vRealize product family. And Mike, no, it is not part of the suite. It is still sold as part. It is bundled with NSX Enterprise. And the reason is because most people who are interested in that particular product are really focused on, implementing NSX, getting into software-defined networking. And so vRealize Network Insight is really helps those customers the most. Now, obviously, we have integrations between vRealize, and we'll have one coming in the next release of both vRealize Network Insight and vRealize Operations, where we'll see integration. We're beginning to have integration between those two in the next release, but the packaging will remain the same for those. So hopefully, Mike, that answers the question. If not, then let me know.
Yeah, okay, he sent a thank you note on the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John. Cynthia is asking for first two recordings. Can Julie, can you help Cynthia with the recording of first two sessions?
You're asking about the on-demand recording? It will be available, and all attendees will receive a follow-up email with that link within the next 24 hours.
I think the question from Cynthia is, I didn't sign up for the first two part of this webinar series, but we are interested now. Can I get the recording for the first two webinars?
Yes, those are also available on the VMUG website. So you'll be able to access it with the same link that you get in the email tomorrow. They're all available on demand. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you very much, Julie. So with that, Ali, I don't have any more questions to answer. Maybe we can open up for a general Q&A.
Okay. Just for folks, if there is any information that you are interested in, we have it on our website at www.cloud.vmware.com/vRealize-operations-cloud. So we have pricing information, terms and conditions. We have demo videos, more demo videos from John, and collateral to help you get started. And if there's nothing else, Julie, I think this would conclude our webinar, and thank everyone for joining us today.
Okay, great. And thank you to our speakers for taking the time to speak to us today. Like I mentioned, attendees will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast. To find out more about the VMUG webcast program, visit vmug.com and check out the education page. Please make sure to complete the short online evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webcast and let us know how today's session went. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.